Proudly representing the 14th District here in Illinois, Congressman Randy Hultgren taking time out of his day to join us. Congressman, good morning to you.
Hey, Riley, good morning.
How are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Got a lot of work ahead of us here, but things are going pretty well. How about you? Everything going all right?
Got nothing to complain about that's worth hearing. Where do we find you? In the district? You in Washington? Where are you?
We're out in Washington. We're out in D.C. This week, so we've got votes through Friday. And a lot planned over the next few weeks of some important things that we're hoping to move forward.
I always have to ask you this, too, around this time of year. Is it cherry blossom time yet?
You know, I haven't been down there. It's been cold, so I've heard they are sort of out, but not like the full-fledged. I mean, it is, you remember, it is just this beautiful, when it is at peak, it's amazing
gorgeous
to see. And I'm not sure if we're quite there yet or not. And it's been cold here, like it's been cold back in Illinois. The winter's kind of dragged on. So it's sort of here, but I don't think it's fully here yet.
Couple of things to get to with you this morning. Let's take the thing that's really making some news this morning is the warning from President Trump toward Mr. Putin that missiles will be coming down in Syria.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary things that continue to happen in Syria. I have, and as all of us, have been so frustrated and so upset with Syria, with Assad, with what they are doing to their own people. I mean, it just is criminal. It's horrible what continues to happen. And the reality is Russia has a strong sway over him and over his people. I'm convinced he doesn't do anything without some level of approval from Russia. So I think the president is right. We've got to pressure and push Russia to hold Assad and leadership there in Syria accountable, that this cannot happen. We saw the president act forcefully before when there were places of chemical weapons that we knew about. I don't know what's going to happen. I do hope Congress has an opportunity to hear about this, to hear what the threat is. I haven't heard if they're going to be giving us a briefing. My guess is they likely will in the next day or two. But again, very concerning. We need to say that this is unacceptable. It is always unacceptable to be using chemical weapons, especially against your own people. With dozens and dozens and dozens killed. And we need Russia to step up. The reality is everybody knows that they have a strong control over that regime, and they need to start reining them in, or else I think there absolutely need to be some response, some consequences to make sure that this doesn't happen to more vulnerable people there.
And as you mentioned, yeah, this is really heated up over the past number of days since the chemical weapon usage and everybody weighing in around the world. And pretty forceful this morning from the president saying, missiles will be coming down, and Russia making the vow to shoot them down.
Yeah, I mean, it's again scary words, scary talk, but also these chemical weapons are frightening as well. My hope is we can have conversation, that Russia will recognize its responsibility, that Putin will recognize the power that he has, or admit to it. We all know it. Admit to it and step up and make sure that there are direct consequences for Assad and the regime there, and that it stops, and that there truly is a ridding of these chemical weapons. We've got to see proof of that.
Let's shift gears a little bit into something that affects people's pocketbooks a little bit. Balanced budget amendment.
Yeah, this is something I've supported ever since coming to Congress. The very first bill that I introduced was no budget, no pay. Again, of saying that we need a budget to be able to hold us accountable for what we're doing, the direction that we're going, having plans going into the future. Unfortunately, there have been continued spending beyond what we're taking in. And so a balanced budget amendment is really that simple, of saying, you know what, we can't spend money that we don't have. Our outgoing needs to equal the revenue that is coming in to government and have that level of accountability. And so we're going to move forward on that this week. We're going to have discussions and debate. The key to dealing with this horrible debt that we've got is really twofold. One is a growing economy. We're seeing tax reform and regulatory reform doing a great job of growing our economy, getting this new optimism, especially among smaller companies, people involved in local businesses. That's where we're seeing great optimism and great growth. But as the economy grows, as incomes grow, as opportunity grows, There's also the reality that there's a natural revenue growth where more money comes into government because the economy and the gross domestic product is growing. So that's a key part of it. And then the other side of it is we need to reduce spending. We've got to get back to core values, what constitutionally we are required to do and responsible for as federal government. And I think a balanced budget amendment is a really important step of saying these have to be in check. And then let's allow this, as we make sure that we're not spending money we don't have, let's get this economy growing so that we can pay down the debt that is, I still believe, a very serious threat to our future.
Well, and Congressman, that's one of those things when your average person hears this discussion over balanced budget and let's not spend what we don't have. Right. I mean, that's what we all try to do as we sit around our own kitchen tables. It doesn't seem that foreign of a concept to the average person.
No, it's common sense. Unfortunately, there's not. Common sense is not very common out here. And so it's been frustrating. And, boy, I've sure seen it where we've done all our work this last year, 12 appropriations bills. I thought they were really well done. They had incredible fiscal restraint and making sure that we're not funding things that we don't want to fund. We did it in the House, passed it to the Senate. They passed 0 of these appropriations bills and really, I think, held our military, I would say, almost as hostages in this. One of the most sickening figures that I've seen recently is the numbers of deaths of our military men and women in exercises. So in practicing to be able to be effective if there was some sort of conflict. I think it was 80 just in 2017 that were killed in exercises. And so oftentimes it was because of failed equipment. And the reality that since 2013, huge cuts and underfunding to one of those constitutional responsibilities that we have of our military, we've seen it happen. And so we need to make sure that they've got the resources that they need and that the equipment they've got works, especially if it's helicopters, airplanes, these types of things, that they're not pulling parts out of museum pieces basically to keep their planes or helicopters running. So anyhow, all this to be said, this is important work, making sure that we do have a budget in place, making sure that we're doing fundamental responsibilities of Congress, and then again, bringing that common sense back of let's make sure we're not spending money that we don't have. Let's do the hard work of prioritizing spending, and let's get the Senate engaged in that once again, where I still think it's ridiculous that it's held to this Senate rule for 60 votes. So in reality, one person in the minority can stop everything from moving forward. Again, it ought to be a majority rule over there. They ought to be able to get 51 votes, and if we can get a majority in the House, then let's move forward and have real positive budgets and appropriations that do take care of what we need to do, but also cut spending that absolutely has to happen.
Speaking of cuts, let's see. Next Tuesday is Tax Day. It's got a little different meaning to it this year.
It does. I mean, this is kind of an interesting one because the tax forms we're going to be filling out still are under the old tax code. So it's I've been working on it, as I'm sure a lot of people have been. It's still time-consuming and frustrating. So I'm looking forward to a year from now when it really will be much simpler. You'll have that doubling of deductions and things. But what I am excited about is we're already seeing the benefit where almost everybody I talk to has seen an increase in their take-home pay since January. Seeing a lot of companies that are growing, expanding, investing more money into their businesses, and most importantly, into their people. The most valuable asset any company has is its people. And so I'm really glad of almost daily news that we're seeing, certainly weekly news, of increases in pay to hardworking folks who just want an opportunity to be able to play by the rules, provide for their family, make it to the end of the month, and move forward and maybe be able to save a little bit. And so I'm excited that the tax bill is doing that. We're kind of in that in-between time where we're still feeling the frustration of how difficult going through that process is currently, but I'm really looking forward to a simpler process next year, but also hopefully a very productive economy over the next 12 months where people can see tax reform makes a difference. It makes a difference for them, and it opens up more opportunities for them, for their families, for their kids, for their grandkids, and so it really does make a difference, and I'm glad about that.